That'll take us into discussion items. Does the board have anything specific?
I do.
Okay.
So I was glad Melissa brought it up, but the whole superintendent position, I did want to talk to the board about going in further with that discussion at some point soon. My feelings as far as Mr. Aiken is concerned, every time I go in there, he has exactly what I need. He's been doing a great job. That's just how I feel, but I do want to know as well what that looks like for us moving forward. So that means next board meeting we're voting on that, or just what that looks like. What does the board feel on that?
Okay.
And then I have lots more about your response to that.
Well, what's the feeling of the board?
What would be voting on? To just start a discussion or put in a time frame and an action plan for
I guess I'm
the
asking for
superintendent
discussion now. So if we could discuss that now and know what we're doing moving forward in April.
Okay.
So I just want to know our proper way of going through that conversation.
Okay. Thoughts, anybody?
Well, I mean, if we're going to try to put something on the April agenda, I feel like we should have some conversations with, I know MASB helps with superintendent searches, so does NC RISA. So it might be good to have those conversations and then put in a timeline and action plan. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, the current contract is through the end of the school year, correct? End of the fiscal year.
The interim contract?
Yes, the interim contract.
Yes,
so
through the end of June, I believe.
So we would want to, I think, in best practices, be looking at that process starting at least as, if not earlier, but kind of unrealistic, I think in May, that we should be looking at that. I feel I would advocate for that we need to have, all stakeholders involved, not necessarily in the final decision, that's a board decision, but I think in the process leading up to and community, feedback. I look at Forest Hills, they did a search, open applications, and then they held public interviews. They had meet and greets with candidates for community members to, learn a little bit more about them so that we can make informed decisions. I agree. I think Kevin's doing a great job. I don't know if Kevin's plans are to continue. I know that retirement was the conversation. So I think that we're fast approaching a timeline that we're going to want to move on. So I don't know if that looks like April. We come back and we have the conversations with NC RISA and MASB, look at their criteria. Maybe it's not a conversation, it's just looking at the criteria, but I know that they've said that they would help with a pool of candidates and helping us look. I think we have to have something on the April agenda that talks about what we would do either mid-April or in May, starting interview process, because I would imagine we'd want at least 2 rounds, if not 3 or more, I guess, depending on how many you need, and the input from as many stakeholders. I think of administrators, teachers, students, community members. I mean, pretty much everybody, in addition to our board. So that's, if we're having a discussion now, that's what I would say.
Yeah,
we should start doing.
I think it's worthy for us to have this discussion right now. So you did pose a question. I was told in the past that retirement was on the horizon for you.
Oh, it was, yeah.
So
I could almost feel it.
Well, and I think.
Did you have a countdown?
I think regardless.
No, I don't do countdowns.
To do our best practices, you would, if Kevin, you were interested in the position.
Hey, Rob, I'm not interviewing anymore. Just so you know that.
Okay.
But yeah, we do need to have that conversation with Kevin to see what his future plans may be. so we know where to move from there in the future.
All I know is my wife told me to fix it, okay? So I'm going to fix it.
And you're doing a great job.
You are.
Yep.
So I guess, Kevin, I will ask you, is this a position that you would be interested in on a full-time basis?
I'm not interviewing anymore.
I'm not asking that question.
Oh, yeah, but I'm not interviewing anymore. I'll just make that real blunt. I mean,
Okay.
You got me till the end of July, or end of June. If I don't get the job done, that's fine.
But if you do, if you are willing to move on, then would that
No,
be an answer?
that's going to be your decision, or the community's, either way.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the whole premise of an interim superintendent is to get us through, from point A to point B, and then you start the process. Again, Kevin's doing a great job, but I think that we would have to look at all available options before we just make a decision. That has been kind of a running frustration for mine, is stalling on some decisions, making very quick decisions on others. This is something that I feel like takes time, research, and definitely conversations with stakeholders beyond just the 7 of us on this board. So and that's where I stand.
Any other thoughts?
I would just say, so at what point do we start having these discussions?
I think we're starting that right now.
Okay.
So, I mean, any thoughts from you guys on here?
Well, personally, I don't know if a pool of candidates is going to make a difference. From the standpoint that right now, by moving Kevin into a position as this, number one, he knows the district. He knows the teachers. Most of all, the students are well acquainted with him. We got that rapport there. He is demonstrating already to where we're getting more information than we've had for a long time. We're getting information on goals, the state of the district. He already has plans on how to move this district forward. I think if you bring someone in from the outside, we're going to stagnate the ability for this school to grow and to move forward. It's going to take them a while to get to know the teachers, to get to know the community. And sometimes you can go outside your backyard, go miles away to dig for a treasure when you get the treasure right in your backyard.
Sure.
And so my recommendation is that we go into conversations with Kevin and just figure out, what his desires are on it. I really believe that when you raise up within your own house and you have that quality, that it benefits everybody. Everybody's more comfortable with that. Everybody knows what we're getting. And he's demonstrating his leadership ability. He's demonstrating through his experience of how he can communicate, how he can organize. So those are my brainstorm opinions.
You can make a subcommittee to bring back
No comment.
recommendations from NC Reset.
Wednesday.
Hey, you're out of order. Point of order.
This is board discussion time.
So what it sounds to me is that there's some decisions that are already being made, which is quite alarming. And again, I mean, the fact that you'd make a statement about, you don't feel like other people would have the qualifications or whatever you're saying to fill this role, I think is very narrow-minded, and it doesn't talk about, or again, go to the spirit of again, transparency, doing your due diligence, doing, the best work for the district, because you're already putting limitations on what other candidates might bring to the table. You don't know that until you bring them to the table. Once you bring them to the table and you go through the process, the interviewing process, the vetting process. I mean, the vetting process is so important. We're seeing it in the CAC advisory committee that not vetting is causing a problem. And to just eliminate all of that is just irresponsible. And again, if Kevin, with all said and done, and if Kevin wants to put his hat into the ring, and he's the best candidate, then that will be determined by the process. Eliminating the opportunity, what if we have other internal candidates that would like to apply? That doesn't set a good precedent at all for how this board conducts a hiring process. And I think that's a very dangerous precedent to set. So I think you need to think about that a little bit longer. And yes, we as a board should be excited about using all of the resources available to us to find the absolutely best candidate. And that candidate could be Kevin sitting right over there. And until we know what we're looking at as far as other candidates, you can't just make that assumption.
I will say Kevin is doing a great job. I think we all acknowledge that. From a best practice standpoint, it is best practice to engage the community. You look at Tri-County, who just hired a new superintendent, and they had community interviews. So just keeping in mind what is best practice for when hiring a superintendent, I think is super important for this process.
Okay.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Any other comments?
We have had community input on superintendents in the past, and people don't come across the type of person they really are. And we've hired them thinking they were one person, and they've completely been someone else. And that's not one superintendent. We've had that done different times. And some of them have made it very, very hard as employees to be able to work with them, because they came in and it's going to be their way or no way. They don't know our area. They don't know our school systems. They just want to come in and rule. And we've had that in the past, and it has not worked.
I know, Danette,
it's better to know, if you know someone, they do their job, they're doing a great job. I don't see why we need to waste our time. Kevin has cleaned up so much in such a short time, and he's got people who are trusting him where the trust hasn't been there in the past.
Again, I think you're making a lot of assumptions about any future hires. Sure, take in the past as as a good lesson to learn. That does not mean that you eliminate that
It's
option.
not been just one. I worked in the school system for 30 years.
That doesn't matter. That says a lot about the people who were hiring. If you're not seeing through
and who was
facades. But the point is that you're taking the stakeholders, which is our community, our staff, our students, everybody, and you're basically saying your opinion doesn't matter. We know best for what this district, and we're going to make that decision. That has not boded well for this board over the last couple of years. So I caution, once again, caution. And the discussion is fine, but discussion, if this transpires into this board, again, of a majority of a vote, just passing a resolution with really no input, that is just a recipe for disaster.
So I guess I see a couple big benefits to where we're at right now. One, we have somebody in this position that that definitely already knows the district, knows the staff, knows the students, has definitely been working on getting some things cleaned up and such. I think Kevin has a lot of trust with the school community and with not only people that work for the school and the students, but also the community at large. I would be interested to know what the community actually thinks about moving forward with Kevin in that position, for sure.
As well as what they would feel about having an open search?
But right now, I think that, we've got a good fit. That is my opinion. And I'm interested to hear what other people have to say about that. What I'm wondering is would this board approve having some conversations with Kevin to find out if this is something that he wants to do, and maybe under what conditions we could make that happen, and we could make a decision on whether or not we want to do a candidate search after that, or what.
Right.
I guess that's up to the board.
So what I'm hearing is you're now making the decision to have the conversations. And
I'm not making any decision. I'm asking the board.
Well, you're asking the board a very leading question.
I'm asking the board if we would want to go in this direction.
And Kevin, again, just like I said at the last meeting and when we met, you know that this is nothing personal.
Buddy, I know.
This is about being a professional.
I know that.
Okay? This is about being a professional board of a school district that should be doing best practices all the way around. And what I am hearing is skipping over several steps of best practices once again. I'm not going to harp on what has happened with the special education, funding and investigation. I will say this, I feel deeply in my heart that there was no ill will, there was no trying to do anything nefarious. I feel like people were overwhelmed in making decisions they thought best for the community and the district. There obviously were mistakes made, and we as a district are going to have to face those consequences of those mistakes. I also feel and echo what some of the people have gone up and said, that this board, it was not the whole board didn't know anything about the investigation really, other than there was one in mid to late January, the week of our special board meeting. And instead of going in there and receiving the information and then going, okay, what are our next steps with this further investigation? Because what I heard in there was an incomplete investigation. There were several key things that had not been done yet, but yet a decision was made, and a decision was made that has a compensation package tied to it, and it also then moved two of our key people in a very important building in the middle school. We could all agree that the middle school age group is, especially post-pandemic, is a really challenging age group to work with. We moved two people out of position in mid-season, in mid-school year, causing even more changes. All of that was done before even a call was made to the people who manage our special education and the state. Okay? I was frustrated then, and I voted no because I felt like we were voting on something we didn't have complete information on. And now I'm hearing it again, that you want to skip over a bunch of steps, have a conversation, figure out a plan, and then bring Kevin back as superintendent. That may be our best option, but that is an option that should at least have other factors involved with it. Not a conversation. That should be interviews with candidates. That should be feedback from stakeholders, not just us sitting up here on this board. I'm sorry, I get it. I'm staying. I love my job, but I'm staying with it too because I don't want to do another interview. But sometimes that's what just needs to happen.
And my position is this: we've got somebody in a position right now. And I think that it would be wise for the board to
At least consider? Sure.
to consider, do we want to move forward with Kevin in this position?
So you're saying considering moving forward in the same sentence? That's
Yes.
It should be
Consider moving
consideration. It should be consideration if, yes, if Kevin is a viable candidate.
We need to keep the momentum going as to what we've got that's being cleaned up to try and bring some peace back into Grant. People of Grant know Kevin, they've worked with Kevin. Kevin puts it out there. You know what he's thinking. He's not going to hide anything from anybody.
I would ask it, or I would.
I feel like that's very opinionated. Again, again.
Well, yeah,
Basically,
my opinion.
Rob, your statements are opinionated also. I mean, you're stating we're all stating our opinion. And so to be able to evaluate, we have to listen to everybody's opinion.
Exactly.
Well, okay, thank you. So don't state that your opinion supersedes everybody else's opinion. Or that there is a definite process that has to be done. That is not true. It is not done 100% of the time to have meet and greet and have various candidates and so forth. That is not true that is done every single time. And even within a business and so forth, if you can raise people up from within, why in the world do you want to throw it out on Indeed or whatever? That is a waste of resources or a waste of time. And we are in a position as a district, we've got to get moving forward. Things have been dragging, and we are still facing the possibilities of consequences with the state. We still got to deal with that because of bad decisions, bad actions by other people. Whether that person or those people are good or whatever their intentions were, whatever, it doesn't matter. They still violated state law. And we are going to face the consequences of that. And so taking that into consideration, we have to weigh out what is the best way to move forward with the right type of leadership that is able to steer us through these troubled waters. And right now you have someone at the helm who is already steering the ship and taking us through those waves. Now, why in the world would we want to shift in midstream? And you can say, I've made my decision. No, I'm evaluating the whole thing. What is best for the community? What is best for the school? What is best for the kids? And, kids are like little sheep. We got to keep them calm and keep things still. And you have someone who they have a great relationship. They know Kevin. And it's my opinion, period, that we stay the course and we enter into discussions, with Kevin and see if the man is his own. He can say yes, he can say no. He could go walking tomorrow and he says, man, with what I see on the table, man, I don't want to deal with this. He has every right to do that. But I think we have to walk with some wisdom and realize what is the best way to get us through this over the next couple years. And that's why I just say we stay the course and we go into talks and discussions with Kevin.
I hear you, Richard, but I think, what you just said there raises some concerns. The number of times you have referred to our students as farm animals is alarming. So I would also challenge this board, who has a reputation right now of being hostile. Have you ever worked for a boss that is just nitpicking everything you do, is just standing over your shoulder, a micromanager? What often happens is mistakes are made, and I'm not excusing any mistakes. When mistakes get made, consequences are paid. But the environment that has been created over the last couple of years by this board has been extremely troubling in the fact that, I mean, the first time I met you, I'll never forget, you talked about you can put a skirt on a bull, but it's still a bull. I mean, it's like how many times can you be, which feels really out of touch with our student body as a whole, and they're supposed to trust the decisions you're making for the better of their day-to-day lives? The way that you build that trust back up is by doing everything in your ability to show transparency and to do best practices. And best practices, whether it's the legal, like you have to do this or not, is to exhaust all options. Because I'll tell you what, sometimes bringing in an outside voice is actually good for a district or good for a job. So I don't want to eliminate that option. What I would love to see is that we have a pool of candidates and we go, Kevin, man, you blew us all away with the work you've done over your career here at Grant, and especially your time as interim superintendent. We'd love to have, that extension. But without the other process, it just seems kind of back door, back channel, a little bit hidden. Okay? It doesn't feel transparent.
I feel like we have a long way to go, and Kevin knows what's going on and how to get us there. So I really like the idea of talking to Kevin about it and seeing where he's at.
Okay.
I will address, may I address my colleague? Okay. Rob, I think you have expressed poor judgment in your own life. Because basically, you know what we discussed. And you're sitting here and you're stating that you do not see any legal wrongs that have been done with the special ed funding.
I never said that.
You most certainly did.
I said that I don't see anything yet because the investigation is not complete when the investigation is complete.
But as a leader, when you are presented information, sometimes you have to make a quick decision based on what's brought before you. And you've chosen not to accept the wrong. And so when we have the state moving in, they're going to agree that there's been wrong. NC RESA, the reason why they're stepping in, because they are ultimately also responsible for special funding. So therefore, that's why they're asking for the information, because they know that part of their neck is on the line also with the state. And so for us to sit here and have you not accept the legalities and what's been violated, it's beyond my comprehension how you can do that. And then as far as you have commented it, and others, as far as farm animals, I think it's a pretty basic idea. I have no problem having boys and girls, male and female. I never referred to anybody as any type of animal, and you know that. And so if I make a comment about that, as farmers, and I'll say it again, I don't have a problem with it. We live in a farming community, and we know that no matter what, you cannot take bulls and put them in a corral with heifers and think that, and that bull is going to act like a heifer. You know what's going to happen. And it's the same way in human life. That's all. And don't take it out of context because of what I was referring to. And to state that I'm calling people that, no. I'm talking about basic biology that is taught in school. We have male and female. We teach that. Do we not? So by just teaching that, and so if you want to discuss that further, I'd be more than glad to discuss that with you.
That'd probably be good between the two of you.
Okay?
So, Rob, I've heard what you had to say. Sabrina, I think I've heard what you had to say. Danette, what's your thought?
I think I've expressed that. I think that Kevin's done a wonderful job, and will continue. He probably won't, yeah, he was thinking of retirement, but I almost think that when you started what he has started and cleaned up what he has, he's been through this special ed stuff before, and it was no fault of his own. He just happened to end up in it. I think that that's someone who needs to be taking us for the next year or so. Not just for a few months, get things going, and then, okay, goodbye, the next person comes in and we start all over. That's my thoughts on it.
Rick, just real quick.
You know my thoughts.
Okay. Rachel?
Yep, I know Kevin is more than qualified for this position. He has the qualifications for it. He knows the district. He has stepped in and was literally walking up a mountain, trying to deal with everything. He knows the community, he knows parents, he knows the staff members well, he knows the students. What about even giving him, instead of, because a typical contract is 2 years, what about doing a 1-year contract to see how he is? Kind of like a, what would you call that? Kind of like an introductory, like just kind of feel it out, see if you'd want to even continue. But, you know, I am not against, I'm looking at, you know, you guys, if it would be you or whoever it would be, having additional conversations with Kevin, seeing, you know, how he feels, if he wants to move forward. If not, then he doesn't. And then we go ahead and do, you know, interviews or whatever. But even knowing beforehand, before reaching out to MASB or whatever, because I did help, I believe, don't quote me if I'm wrong, but with the search when we were looking for a new superintendent after Jonathan had left. So I think we need to start with Kevin and see if he wants to move forward with a permanent position, and then from there going on. But I think he's more than qualified to fill this position.
Okay.
Ken, is there a policy outline on that, on what that looks like?
We have two policies. One basically says that we will employ a superintendent. The other one talks a little bit about going through the process. The interesting thing about that policy, and Melissa, are you still here? Yep. So Melissa, the two policies, just to give you your answer quick, 0132.1 and PO 1220 are the two policies that we have internally that deal with that. The interesting one about 1220, the employment of the superintendent, it does not say shall on any of these things. It says may. So there's not a requirement for us to do anything specific to find a superintendent candidate. The other piece that comes into play would be the Michigan Revised School Code, specifically Section 1229. And again, there's no requirement for us to go out and do a candidate search or anything like that. And you know, I've looked these things up because of the question that Melissa gave. Just let me finish this, please. So, you know, the policies, you know, they give some basic things, but there's nothing rigorous or any type of a process that's laid out in any of that. So I know that, you know, I haven't been part of it in the past, that, you know, there's been superintendent searches with MASB and such in the past. I am of the belief that if we can grow from within, I think we're in a much better position. That's one of the reasons why I was very happy that we had Jamie Pressler that was able to step into that position when we pulled Kevin out of that position. And you know, I would just point out that if we didn't think that Kevin was the right person for that job, we wouldn't have approved him as the interim in the first place. So That's where I'm at. So if the board doesn't have any strong objections to at least having that conversation to see what it would take to keep Kevin in that position,
I think that's
you know,
needs to be started.
then I would have those conversations and see what a contract might look like to bring back to the board for a decision.
Okay.
So, Stephanie, I don't mean to put you on the spot here, but what's your overall thought?
I think Kevin may very well be our best choice, but I also very much think that we need to consider all of our stakeholders, like I said before. So that's where I'm at on the matter.
Okay. So I'm taking it that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm taking it to go ahead and have the conversation, but we may also want to expand that conversation and maybe have potentially even have a special meeting where we can bring, and have a conversation just with the community on it as well.
Sounds good.
So.
At the very minimum, yes.
So, and I think that's that there's no issue with doing that. I don't see any issue with that.
Okay.
So, ultimately, we have to make the decision. But, personally, I've seen a lot of good movement since we've had Kevin in that position. And so I personally would like to keep that going for the benefit of the district. So,
Can I finish my list now, or?
all right, next item on the agenda is consideration of superintendent contract. So there is a copy of that contract in front of each of you. So at the last board meeting, I asked the board if they would allow me to have a contract put together. That contract is what is in front of you for us to consider. Before we get into any discussion, we do need a motion and support, please.
So moved.
Second.
All right. That'll allow us to get into discussion on the contract. So this is, as far as compensation, this is in line, just a little bit higher than the interim contract that Mr. Aiken is under right now. But other than that, Clark Hill put this together for us, and they addressed some concerning language that they saw in the last superintendent contract. And Kevin has reviewed this, and you are good with the conditions in this?
Yeah.
Okay. So just to give you guys a few minutes to go through that. Okay, we are open to discussion whenever the board is ready.
So am I right, when I look here, it's looking like this is 3-year?
3 years, yep, which is consistent with past superintendent contracts. Yep.
Well, I mean, I have all kinds of comments, so I'll try to keep them brief. First, maybe I'm misremembering, but I don't remember from the last meeting, which there was a lot of conversation, that it was an approval for you as a board president to go and write up a contract. If you feel like there was something about what does Kevin want, and we could see about that. So the fact that, the next board meeting, there's a contract, which, by the way, we're seeing for the first time. I seem to recall you saying in an email when you got the administrator's contract in November that we couldn't possibly vote on it because it was the first time you'd seen it. I mean, you didn't mention that until like January. But here we are with a contract that I'm literally looking at for the very first time, a 3-year contract, no less, starting today, basically. So there's no consideration of a vetting process. There's no consideration of, interviews, getting public feedback, stakeholders. That none of that matters, right? We're gonna vote. Obviously, we all know where the vote's gonna go, and that's gonna get passed. And the timing of it's not lost on me either. This sure feels like a rush job. Seems how we have a contract already in place through the end of June. So why now, I guess is my question. Why on April 9th, after a discussion for the first time about the superintendent search, are we seeing a contract in front of us that we're going to vote on and sign? Feel free to answer it, don't answer it, I don't really care. This is what is continuing to be a problem. And that's all I have to say. Right now, I don't know, I may change my mind in a minute.
At our last board meeting, one of the things that I shared was I thought it was important to get feedback from our stakeholders. And I still think that's important. And yeah, this is the first time I'm seeing this contract as well. So that's a bit concerning to me.
Other discussion?
May I ask Kevin some questions?
Sure.
Wait, no, Kevin said he's not going to interview anymore. Remember? But go ahead.
Mr. President, may I go on?
Yes, you may.
Thank you. Number 12 in your contract. You ready for that?
I don't know. Do you have, I
Medical
don't have a copy in front of me right now.
Maybe. There you go. Tough question. Number 12, you ready for that?
Are you going to state for the audience what 12 is?
Medical examination. Yeah, I'm good with that.
Okay.
That's fine.
Yeah.
I think I can do okay with that.
He has to submit to a medical examination, and that including drug and alcohol tests.
Yeah, that's fine.
And that. On this, are you, I know you say you're content with this contract. I want to point out that the board has the right to unilaterally and to terminate the superintendent's contract at any point with or without cause. In the event that the board does terminate your contract, you would be given a severance pay equal to 6 months of your current salary level or the balance of the contract, which is ever less. Before, am I correct that the previous contract that the board, that the district was committed to a 1-year salary instead?
It was a 1 year.
Okay.
Yep.
So instead of a 1-year salary for severance, it's 6 months. You're okay with that?
I am fine with that.
Yep, okay. I'm just saying that because in the previous, it was 12, we reduced it down to 6, on that. And that, just that the board can terminate with or without cause. Now, was that clause, that was in the previous one, Mr. President?
So, yeah, the termination provisions are pretty much the same.
Pretty standard?
Now, this is for reasons that are not arbitrary and capricious, yes,
Correct.
yes.
Okay.
Other discussion?
So are you going to let us look at this and then we'll come back and vote on it in May?
If that's what the board decides to do. This is not up to me, Rob.
Okay.
I am one of 7 on
So
the stage.
I have one other question, then that's for you. So was one of the things that Clark Hill changed in the contract was the residency portion in our bylaws? Because it says here the board waives the residential requirements for the superintendent. I believe it's like 25 miles. Or
Something
20,
like that,
something
yes.
like that.
Yep.
So is that one of the things that Clark Hill waived? Because as a board, I didn't waive that. I
Well,
just first time seeing
that
it,
is
so.
part of our discussion and our decision tonight, isn't it?
I mean, again, you realize the optics of this right now are terrible. I mean, it's up to you all, but, I mean, that's, to go from it being brought up, and I think it was even brought up, I don't even know if it was brought up by us or if it was brought up by a community member, what are we going to do? And we go from not having a direct plan, but, at least I threw out there what best practices typically are, to then, again, so we're going to get a bill from Clark Hill on this as well? Yeah, shocking. Man, Clark Hill, they're making a killing on us, aren't they? Here we are, we're voting. Yep.
Ken, how much is it to go through MASB for the superintendent search?
Through MASB specifically, I'm not sure if I have the exact amount. It's somewhere in the neighborhood of $7,000 to $8,000 for them to bring us a list of names.
Did you even consider it?
And that's just the list of names?
Yes. Yep.
How much was it for the?
People, this is not public comment time.
So there's also NC RISA that is, would be an entity willing to help with that as well. They've helped other districts in our county. That's really kind of what they're there for. Yeah.
I think
So
Kevin's
we're-
been doing a great job, and I don't see why best practice wouldn't also, and this is, I'm just saying, but why best practice doesn't also include promoting within? Like, why would we, if we're doing a grow your own and we're all about, starting from within, and that's just a question.
Yeah.
I always promote within, and then I train after that
I mean,
for the next person to step up and.
That is an option. It's not always the best option, and it's not necessarily an option when you're looking at the best option or the best practices when you're looking at a position of this magnitude within a public education district. Sure, it's awesome to promote within. I'm a big fan of promoting within. I mean, the fact that we have alumni coming back and teaching here is also a part of that. But that doesn't mean that you can't also entertain and interview and look at other candidates. I don't even know why I'm doing this. I said it all last time. It's obviously falling on deaf ears on this board. So I guess we'll go to a vote. And then, like so many other things that have happened over the last 18 months, we'll see what the consequences are.
Any other discussion on this?
No, I just want to support what Sabrina said. It's not too often that in a school district that you're able to see the performance of your superintendent or future superintendent over a 2-3 month period to be able to evaluate. That would be the best practice and option if every school district could have their candidates come in and perform their duties for 3 months and to make an evaluation from there, instead of going strictly by an interview or by their resume. And our situation in being able to bring this school in line with the reading, writing, special ed proficiencies and so forth, and to be able to bring some hope to the students and so forth. Kevin has demonstrated that, not just over the last couple months, but he's been here for a good time as a principal. And I'll say it again, Mr. President, that he understands the students. He understands our situations. He has good reports coming back from the administrators that I know. And I just feel that the best practice, best option, time-wise, efficiency-wise, fiduciary-wise, is to move forward. And as the agenda says, a consideration. And I would like for us to consider this contract and put it up and vote so that we can just move forward. We don't need to keep on dragging things out.
Any other discussion?
I'll just say Kevin might be the right person for the job, but I still believe it's important for us to think about how we're moving forward, and if there are things that we can do that involve best practices, I think that we need to do it. It's important to do it the right way. That's not taking anything away from Kevin or the job that he's been doing.
In best practices from a board would be, and I mean, the irony of how many times this has come up on the other end of this board would it be then if that was the way that people were feeling right from the get-go, this should have been a conversation before now. This shouldn't, again, be discussed for a few minutes in the last board meeting during the discussion time at the end of the board meeting, and then turn around 30 days later with no conversation. It wasn't even in our board packet, and we've had the board packet for like a week. I mean, it was there, and I was curious about it, and then it was gone, and then it came back, but there was never any attachment to it. It was just consideration of superintendent contract. And there was not one bit of communication about what that would entail. So again, surprise, here we are, night of a board meeting, and we're being handed something for the first time and asked to vote on it. It's just shocking how many times this has happened over the last year plus. It just never ceases to amaze me.
So I'll just address part of what you just said. It is not common practice for us to include contracts in the board packet at all. So our administrator contracts that we just approved at the last board meeting, those were not included in the board packet either.
Yeah, but we had a chance to see them ahead of time.
We did. And
Yep.
we have the opportunity right now to decide what we want to do. Do we want to continue in the situation that we're at with an interim, or do we want to move forward and be done with that and focus on other things? That is the board's decision.
Okay. So how is that going to be done when comes time to vote?
What do you mean?
How are we going to decide whether we're considering or we're actually voting to sign off on this?
So I will ask for, so we have it on the agenda that we're considering this contract. A vote of yay would be to approve this contract. A vote of nay would be to not approve this contract.
Okay.
Any other discussion on this item?
Yeah, I have a question. Or can you answer Mr. President, on, there was a community meeting that Kevin held, and that, what was our feedback? Did we get a lot of negative feedback from that? Was it positive? What, can you give us a little bit? Because it was opened up to the community and so forth. What was the feedback from that?
So first off, that was the forum that we talked about, the special ed investigation, or the monitoring, I should say, not investigation, the monitoring that MDE and NC RISA were in for. I personally did not hear anything from that. I don't know, Kevin, what kind of feedback did you get from that?
Yeah, it's pretty much some positive. I think some people appreciated it, that we talked about it, and, we didn't really run from it, and we're taking steps to address it. So I didn't hear any negative feedback.
Okay.
But you rarely do.
Yeah, I mean, that's not really
No.
data that you draw a decision based off of.
I will say that I personally have not heard of any concerns about the job performance that Kevin has done for the district since he has taken this role, either from community members or board members. I don't know if any other board members have. Okay. I would think that if there were concerns, we would hear about those. So, are we ready to call a vote on this item? Yes?
So
Okay.
call.
All right, so roll call vote on this. Sabrina?
Aye.
Rob?
Nay.
Rich?
Yay.
Stephanie?
Nay.
Danette?
Aye.
Rachel?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. Motion passes. Thank you.